What's happening there, Living Environment fans? It's time for the Bellringer. And don't forget, today's Tuesday, tomorrow's Wednesday, where we have our final book talk. And so you'll get to tell me all about the book that you've been reading this quarter. I look forward to that. So that's tomorrow. That means tonight, as some of you might have a lot of reading to do. Let's do the Bellringer.
All right.
Hey now.
Mr. Kovacs class. It's Mr. Kovacs class. You might learn a ton. It's Mr. Kovacs class.
It's interesting too.
It's Mr. Kovacs class.
And he's super cool.
It's Mr. Kovacs class.
Yesterday, I reviewed like mitosis and the cell cycle. Mitosis, right, is where you do replication and you copy yourself and then you split. So it's copy once, split once, and you wind up with two daughter cells that have the same DNA as the parent cell. Isn't that right, friend? That's right. That's right. That's right. Okay, but there are specialized places where mitosis happens in a weird way, where it's like you copy once but split twice. And that's called meiosis. And meiosis happens only in really one place called the gonads, right? And there's two different types of gonads, and that's what we'll review today, right? Meiosis is you start with one cell, it copies its chromatin, all the chromosomes, and then it does the splits once, but then again a second time right away. And you wind up with four daughter cells. Each should have half of the genetic instructions that the parent cell had. These are called sex cells or reproductive cells, or actually the best word we use is gametes, right? And it's called meiosis. Meiosis 1 and meiosis 2 are the two splitting phases. It was in meiosis where this like homologous chromosomes might cross over, and so there's some extra trading of genes between chromosomes. But what's important is that you wind up with, you've got the original cell, it copies once, splits twice. You have four daughter cells that each have half of the genes, and they might even be in different combinations after the end of meiosis. So meiosis is part of sexual reproduction, and meiosis is increased variation among offspring. There are two meiotic organs. One is the sperm-making organ called the testes, or testis is one of them, and meiosis happens in the testes, so these cells become half like the daughter cells we usually call sperm cells, right? And those cells are made in the testes, and then they're stored in a little pocket sitting on top of the testes called the epididymis, right? And then they, of course, go through what's called the vas deferens, past the seminal vesicles and the prostate gland, and then are ejaculated out of the end of the penis during sexual intercourse. You learned all about that in health class. What we care about most in biology in the regions is, what are the cells like? They wind up with four daughter cells that are basically nucleuses and with a tail on them. Right? Not much else going on in a sperm cell. Very fragile cells, only last for a few days or so. And if you make sperm, you'll make them from the time you reach puberty or have reached puberty until you die, most likely. Unless you lose your testes, because if you live to be 99 years old and you've made sperm your whole life, you're going to make it on your 99th birthday too. Okay? Now, it's a little different when we talk about the other, type of gonad, the egg-making gonad. The egg maker is called the ovary. The ovary. And things are a little bit different. First of all, when they do meiosis, they still copy once, split twice, but they wind up with four daughter cells, one of which is huge, which we call the egg or the ovum. The other three are small, rinky-dink little fragile cells, really not much more than like sperm cells, called the polar bodies. Like in sperm makers, you kind of have even gametes, right? But in egg makers, you copy once, split twice, and when you split, you shift all of your cytoplasm into this big cell, which we call the egg. And we've learned that mom provides not only half the genes, but all of the other cell stuff, all the other cytoplasm, especially mitochondria, we remember comes from mother only, right? Dad provides genes, mom provides genes and everything else. So it's equal in terms of genes, but it's not equal in terms of cell stuff. And I always see this on the Regents exam. There's always some kind of question about reproductive system and mitosis and meiosis, where they want to know where fertilization happens. Okay, so if you remember your health class and a little bit of biology class, the egg is released by the ovary, right? And it kind of bumbles its way down the fallopian tube. It takes a while. It can take up to a week or so to get from the ovary to the uterus. Right? Between the ovary and the uterus is where fertilization happens. Sperm has to meet egg somewhere in here, and then that zygote copies itself and copies itself, copies itself. Once it's reached the uterus, it's a ball of cells we call morula, and then it sticks to the uterus, and we call that a blastocyst when it sticks to and then that's when mom is pregnant. So you can see that can be a difference of 8 to 9 days between when sexual intercourse was had and when you actually become pregnant. And then, we got 9 months of growing baby inside of mom's uterus, and then another 18 years after that of taking care of baby until they're ready to get out of high school and go on their way. And yeah. All right, so in the Regents class, in the Regents test, they always ask where fertilization happens, and it's in the fallopian tube between the ovary and the uterus. All right, and then remember, mitosis is one cell splits into two, right? It copies once, splits once, and you get two cells that are identical. Meiosis copies once, then splits twice. You wind up with 4 gametes, 4 cells that are not identical, that have half of what you started with. Mitosis, meiosis, ooh, my, oh, my, oh, my.